Hello and welcome to What's New Today. This is a kids and family podcast. In every episode, curious children from anywhere in the world speak about one interesting news story, and they also share their opinions about these. On this podcast channel, you can often hear children speak about sports updates, interesting science and technology developments, or even about what's going on in different countries. In today's episode, we talk about robotic fishes and how they are likely to be cleaning our oceans. If you love robotics, or if you've enjoyed playing with remote control cars and planes as a child, you'll very likely enjoy listening to what my super enthusiastic co-host today has to say. Let me introduce her to you.
Hello, my name is Anura. I am 10 years old. I live in Indore. I study in the Anura International School.
Welcome to the show, Anura. If there are any two interesting hobbies of yours, what would those be?
I like to code on Scratch, and the second is to read books.
You love coding on Scratch, is it?
Yeah.
Have you developed a game of yours or something?
Yeah, I have developed many, like ping pong game, and I have made a multiplication, addition, and subtraction game also.
Wow! All the games that you've developed sound super interesting. So what kind of books do you like to read?
Harry Potter, The Secret Garden. I also enjoyed reading some of the books that some of the other children have recommended on your Instagram page.
I'm sure all children love to hear recommendations made by other kids, right? Rather than from adults.
Correct thing, because adults always are like boring things, like boring books.
Adults always read boring books. If a book doesn't have any pictures, that would qualify for a boring book?
No, ma'am, not according to me. Harry Potter, no photos, but still so interesting.
But still so interesting. I totally agree. All right. On that very interesting note, shall we start today's episode with a tiny game? I will give you the names of 3 tasks. Tasks is like sleeping or eating or something like that. And I'd like you to tell me whether you would like to do this task or would you rather let a robot do it on behalf of you?
Okay.
The first one is drawing or painting.
Robot.
You don't like drawing or painting?
I'm not too good at drawing.
You're not good at drawing. What about cleaning your room?
Robot.
No one wants to do that.
I never clean my room. My mother cleans it, and anyways, it's clean always.
Yeah, I'm sure all children in the world think my room is any which way is clean, right? Even if there are like 10 books piled one on top of the other. And the last one, swimming.
I would do it.
You love swimming?
I would love to swim the whole time in the pool.
Speaking of swimming, we'll jump into today's topic. I know, Anura, you've read a little bit about these robotic fishes eating microplastics and keeping our oceans clean.
Yes.
Can you tell me what you know about them?
Robotic fish is just like a remote control car. It is a remote control fish.
So what is so exciting about this robotic fish? What can it do?
This robotic fish is very special because it can eat microplastics and lots of other polluting things.
Ooh, that sounds like a great thing to have. Or maybe they should use these robotic fishes to even clean all our swimming pools, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea, but I don't think there must be anything in the swimming pool. Who will throw the plastic in the swimming pool?
We normally don't see people trashing their empty water bottles into a swimming pool. That is quite true. But I'll tell you what, there's a microplastics, which is basically all the plastics that we have, and they are broken into very, very, very tiny particles, right? So when they become these very, very tiny particles, they dissolve in water. And that water travels through all our water systems, through our water supply. So even if you turn the tap on in your house, do you think that tap has microplastics?
Surely.
It surely does, right? That means almost every water body that we see has some level of microplastics.
Okay. Aquarium also?
Aquarium also, yeah. Poor things. There's a lot of fishes swimming and unnecessarily they also might end up eating all these microplastics. So yeah, I think we could use these robotic fishes in aquariums also. For those of our listeners who'd like to know how microplastics have entered practically every part of our drinking water system, even some of our foods, you're welcome to listen to episode 13, where we've spoken about how in practically every glass of water that we all drink, there is some level of microplastic.
Scientists have found out that 80% of the humans have microplastics in their blood.
Oops, we've all got microplastics that have entered our blood thanks to all the water we are consuming, where microplastics have already dissolved, right?
I know some of the dairy beverages through we get microplastics in our blood.
Which beverages give us microplastics?
When you put a tea bag in a cup of hot water, 11 billion microplastics are released into the water.
You mean that tiny little tea bag releases billions of microplastics?
Yes.
Is there anything else apart from tea that we normally consume that has a lot of microplastics?
When we take out sea salt from the water, microplastics also get in the water. Like that, when we consume salt, microplastics go into our body.
Ooh, so what do we do then if we can't consume sea salt?
We should consume rock salt.
Oh, so rock salt may have fewer microplastics than sea salt, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you have such fantastic household tips too. Science combined with everyday fitness. We started with a robotic fish that has recently been invented by scientists in China from Sichuan University. These robotic fishes are capable of eating up all the microplastics that's floating on the surface of the ocean. What happens if a shark happens to be swimming by and opens its mouth and eats up this robotic fish? Will the shark get a stomachache because it's consumed a piece of metal?
This robotic fish is not made up of metal. Instead, it is made up of polyurethane, which is a non-toxic, eco-friendly material.
If we can't digest something that we eat, we all end up having some form of uneasiness in our stomach, right? That won't happen to the fish. How big is this fish?
It's only 1.3 centimeters long.
Is 1.3 centimeters longer than my finger?
Shorter.
So it's as long as one of our fingernails, right?
It could be a bit longer.
Listeners of the show, if you would like to just quickly look at your fingernails, that is how long this robotic fish is. It's a really tiny object swimming around in our oceans and keeping them completely clean. So if your entire neighborhood happened to have one garbage collection point, right? And if you had to look into it, what is the single largest item you likely will see there?
Plastic bottles and all.
And where do most of these plastics end up?
In the oceans.
Some of the plastic that ends up in the ocean might be all the plastic bottles that we chuck from our homes. But there's another very big source of plastic in our oceans. Do you know what that is?
Most of us wear synthetic clothes. Like this is a synthetic cloth. And when we wash them, these are made up of microfiber, which is a type of microplastic. And when we wash our clothes, it goes through the drainage, and the drainage water goes into the oceans.
Ooh, so that's another source of microplastics. Thank you. You've really opened my eyes. I'll be more careful. You are coding many games on Scratch yourself, right? If you had to make a game based on robotic fish, how would you design it?
I would just make a backdrop of underwater and make the robotic fish chase some microplastics. And the more the microplastic it eats, the more points the player gets.
So if they eat like 1 million microplastics, the player will finish level 1. Did you know that microplastics are such a big problem? And did you also know that there are now robotic fishes which can eat up all these microplastics and keep our ocean super clean? On that very interesting note, shall we now move to the interesting part of today's episode?
It's quiz time. Let's see how well you listened.
Question 1. Is the robotic fish as long as a bar of dairy milk chocolate, or is it smaller than that?
It's much smaller than the bar of a dairy milk. It is only 1 centimeter long.
Question 2. Which of these will generate more microplastics? Is it when we drink tea made from a tea bag, or is it when we make tea from tea leaves and then strain them?
When we drink tea from tea bags.
Question 3. If a shark were to consume a robotic fish, is it likely to get a stomachache, or will it be able to digest the robotic fish easily?
It would be able to digest the robotic fish easily.
I've got a very interesting riddle for you. Shall we try solving this together?
Yes!
There's a fish tank in somebody's house, and that fish tank has 10 fish. Now, 2 of them drown. 4 fish swim away and 3 fish die. How many fish are left in the fish tank?
1.
The answer is 10. You know why?
Why?
Because first, when I said 2 fish drown, fishes never drown because they can easily survive in water. Secondly, when I said 4 fish swim away, remember they're in a fish tank. Where can they swim away? And the last 3 fish die. Now, even if they are dead, they're still going to be floating right there in the fish tank, right? So all the fishes, all the 10 of them are still there in the fish tank. Did you like that riddle? Thank you so much, Anura. I had a lot of fun chatting with you on this show. So when do you listen to podcast episodes on this channel?
I listen to the podcast when I am working on the computer and when I am traveling.
That's lovely. So is there any one podcast episode that you really like and would recommend to other listeners?
The episode I liked the most was of Thrive. It's like episode number 38.
What is that episode about?
Video game characters should have both male and female characters. Because most of the video game companies only have male characters.
Male characters, yeah, that is definitely unfair. But hopefully a lot of that has changed by now. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed this banter between Anura and I, please do remember to click the follow and subscribe button because it's such an easy way to get your everyday news by listening to this podcast when you're driving or before you go to bed, or just like Anura, you could also listen to it while you're doing homework, whichever way you prefer. I look forward to meeting all of you in our next episode, and
thanks for listening.